isn't going to import as much because it's still one of the poorest countries on earth. So the literal only difference here is that we Americans will pay more money for something that was cheaper just last week. But hey, art of the deal. And beyond that, who cares if there's a trade imbalance? That's not a bad thing. It just means, again, that we need more of other countries' goods than they need of ours. Why are we punishing foreign countries for selling us what we need? Is the United States suddenly going to become a vanilla-producing country? Donald Trump is an idiot who thinks that trade imbalances are bad when they're not. It's just a trade imbalance. We import what we need, they import what they need. The notion that one of the poorest countries in the world, with, by the way, a population of 30 million people, needs to import as much as the richest country in the world with 350 million people, makes zero sense on its face, and certainly makes zero sense as a basis to plunge us into a voluntary recession. And I can't believe that I'm going to cite Larry Kudlow here, but he's right when he explains that the U.S., as a strong, growing economy, will run trade deficits because we're growing faster than other countries, which means that we consume more than other countries. The reality is that we can't produce everything here in the U.S., so we have to look elsewhere. It's not a sign of weakness, it is inherently a sign of strength. And yet now, Trump has squandered that advantage and instead unilaterally and voluntarily plunged us into an economic downturn. In other words, he took a healthy, hot economy, decided based on some arbitrary backwards ideology that we were getting ripped off when we weren't. He stopped that hot economy in its tracks, punished us and our trading partners, and plunged us into an economic slowdown where I guess we don't have to worry about being ripped off anymore because now no one is making any money anywhere. All thanks to one person. In fact, it's not just Kudlow who's losing his patience with this economically illiterate man-child. Here's Dave Portnoy.
I almost tweeted out, Dave, how much are you down right now in today? 7 million. I'm down $7 million in stocks and crypto. And it's tariff city. Trump has put his tariffs all over the place. I've been trying to understand them. I don't. Like, it's more a trade deficit tariff to me. Like, hey, we get this much shit from you and you get this much from us. Let's even that up. Let's get some wacky formula and do tariffs. And everything's in the shitter because of it.
And here's Ben Shapiro.
Yesterday, President Trump declared that it was, in fact, Liberation Day, his giant tariff policy that he just dropped on the market unilaterally, probably unconstitutionally. Trump's reciprocal tariffs impose hundreds of billions of dollars in new taxes on Americans, be the largest tax increase since the Revenue Act of 1968. One of the biggest tax increases on American consumers in the history of America. And it's going to cost American consumers. It will cost American producers who use inputs from other countries. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted immediately more than 1,000 points. The S&P 500 plummeted more than 3%. The NASDAQ plummeted almost 4.5%. There are real-world implications for this sort of stuff. Trade wars are, in fact, not good and not easy to win, particularly if you don't actually have a plan. It is predicated on a bad idea of how international trade works. A fundamental misunderstanding of trade deficits. Trade deficits they're an accounting procedure. Trade deficits have pretty much nothing to do with the health of an economy. I can name you a period in American history where there was a fairly large surplus in America's balance of trade. The entire Great Depression.
In fact, we might even see some Republican senators acknowledge their own autonomy and use the power that they've already contracted out to the God King to instead rein him in. According to reporting from The Hill, 7 Republican senators, including Senator Chuck Grassley, the Senate's president pro tempore, Senator Mitch McConnell, the former Senate Republican leader, have signed on to a bipartisan bill that would require Congress to approve President Trump's steep tariffs on trading partners. Grassley and McConnell have joined 5 other Republicans, Senators Jerry Moran, Lisa Murkowski, Tom Tillis, Todd Young, and Susan Collins, in supporting the Trade Review Act of 2025. The legislation would limit Trump's ability to impose unilateral tariffs without the approval of Congress. It would require the president to notify Congress of the imposition of new tariffs and increase tariffs within 48 hours and provide an explanation of the reasoning for the action. And I gotta say, it sure is funny watching these Republicans scramble to figure out how to clean up the gunshot wound when it was them who handed Trump the gun in the first place. These bowls of human jello have contracted every single ounce of their power to Trump, knowing full well that he is an idiot who has been threatening to sink the economy because of his backwards idea of tariffs since the day he entered office. This is like if a 5-year-old spent every day for months telling you that paint looks yummy, and then you leave him in a room with a bucket of paint. You don't get to be surprised when he eats it. You assholes left Trump in a room with a bucket of paint, and only now, When the kid needs to go to the hospital, are you recognizing that maybe paint should be locked up out of reach of children? All of which is to say, this was predictable, and yet none of the Republicans gave a shit. These people were so worried about showing loyalty, showing fealty to Daddy Trump, that they allowed their supporters, like Larry Kudlow, like Dave Portnoy, like Ben Shapiro, like millions of other Americans, to get screwed over by policies that we all warned would usher in economic disaster. This is what happens when you reward Republicans with power. And look, I'm not here to relitigate the 2024 election, but I am here to ask that you not support a political party moving forward that felt that this was an appropriate thing to do, knowing the risks, because ushering in economic catastrophe is anything but appropriate. Before you go, first, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we're now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they're willing to cater to this White House. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a great way for me to be able to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's completely free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support my work. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.